about and some of the things that you can do to develop your people, and so we're going to go into that today. First, you have to ask yourself, why are you developing people? In our new environment, in Lockheed Martin, of course, we have two different kinds of managers. We've got program managers and talent managers, and a lot of you today have got groups of people that work for you that's all you have are people. And so just about your only job is to develop your people and grow your people and make sure they get the training and growth that they need. Why do I talk about employee development? Because that has been my passion for the last 35 years. And so I wanted to share with you today some of the thoughts I have on employee development. Today I have over 400 employees, and so developing those people, especially to try to backfill for the 150 of them that are ready and eligible to retire, can be daunting. So in developing everyone you have is an important task. It's also critical to your mission, especially in a reduced funding environment, which we're all in, especially the defense industries are seeing less and less money, but having to do more and more with the same amount of people. And I want to talk about more practical application kinds of things you can do versus really emphasizing the theories that you've heard in management classes and things like that. So to start off, these are the sections that I'm going to be talking about: mentors, passion, strategically planning for the future, developing pools of people, identifying the gaps, utilizing assignments, and the giving away your best people. On the subject of mentors, first of all, you need to be a mentor. If you are a leader, it's an imperative that you are also a mentor. Second of all, you should have a mentor yourself. Somebody should be mentoring you and helping you grow throughout your entire career. So you need to get a mentor. What kind of mentors are there out there? These are the kinds of mentors that you'll be looking for. I actually believe you should try to get one of each of these: a sponsor, an advocate, and a fault finder. And if you have these three types of mentors in your life, you'll always make very balanced decisions, and they in fact can actually help you to succeed. Sponsors, that's the term I use to mean people who are both in leadership but also in levels of authority that actually can affect what kinds of jobs you get, what kinds of rotations you get, what kinds of assignments you get, and actually can help in the selection process to help promote you to whatever it is you're trying to get to. The second are advocates. Everybody needs an advocate sponsor, somebody they can talk to. That's the person that you can not only talk about your job to and where you want to go when you grow up, what do you want to be, but also talk about how does that fit with your personal life, how does that fit with your belief system, what is that going to do to your personal life. You need to have an advocate that you can talk to as a mentor. It can be at work, it can be at home, it can be friends, family, but you need somebody that you can talk about balancing work life and making sure you make the right decisions and you don't just over-focus on your job. You got to look at your jobs and what does that mean to me and what kind of job. You know, how much travel, how many hours do I have to work, you know, how much time am I going to be going off and going to school and to training and going off and trying to fix problems. The last one is fault finders, and this is kind of one I think that people get blindsided in, is we have a tendency to only want to listen to people that tell us good things about ourselves, and we don't really want to have somebody tell us the things that we don't want to hear. You'll know who these people are. They're in your life. You run across them in your workplace. You run across them at home. They're the ones that are telling you what's wrong with you. They're telling you the things that, well, you know, you're not really good at that, or, you know, you really have a problem with this, or, you know. The nice part about going to them and saying, I want you to be my mentor, is that they will tell you the downside of everything you're doing. So if you go to them and say, well, I'm considering taking this job, what do you think about it? They'll tell you stuff like, well, you know, you're not really good at being an individual contributor. You really need to stay in leadership. Or, you know, they will actually tell you the downside. So the nice part about it is when you've talked to the three mentors, you get somebody who sees it from the company's view, you've got somebody who sees it from both your personal view as well as your talent, and you've got somebody who's telling you all the downsides, so that when you make the decision to go forward, you're not missing the downside. Because how many times have people taken a job and then come back and said, oh my gosh, I shouldn't have done that. That really didn't fit for me. And all of a sudden all the downsides start showing up and you weren't prepared. So the other is being prepared for that downside so that you can take that into account when you get a new job and try to counteract that. Whether you want to get training in a certain area so you'll be better at it so that you can succeed at that job. But don't miss out on the fault finders. They can be very beneficial to your career. Passion. As a leader, when you work on employee development, passion is a key to getting the most performance out of your employees. First of all, you need to get to know your employees and understand them and know what motivates them, know what they love and enjoy, know what they enjoy doing with all their might, you know, their energy, their enthusiasm. So get to know your employees. Watch for their interests. When do they perk up? You know, what kinds of things are going on? You know, do they perk up when you've got some big task team? Do they perk up when you have a big problem to solve? Do they perk up when you're doing employee things? And you need to watch for their interests, watch for their enthusiasm, and then try to match them to their passions. You want to try to give them job assignments that really feed their passion. And you'd be really surprised the kind of job assignments that will feed somebody's passion. I had a couple of people come in because we have to review all of our documents for the fiscal year 11 contract. And there's about 300 contractual documents that have to be read. And the people who came to see me, you could see that this was a huge job that they didn't really want to do. You could tell they did not have a passion for it at all. So what did I ask myself when I saw the job? Yes, it's very daunting. Would I want to do that job? No. Okay? But I said, who would like that job? Who actually would get energized by that job? Who has a passion for that kind of work? And I said, I know who it is. It's this person. So I called that person up and brought him to my office and I said, here's this task that we have to do. It's very daunting, it's very difficult, and it's very, you know, grueling, but I think you're the very best person for this job and your talent will bring the most to this assignment. That person was thrilled. Why? Why were they thrilled with this drudgery assignment? Because to them it wasn't drudgery. It was something that fed their passion. It was something they enjoyed doing, something they felt good at, something they felt they could contribute to. That's the whole point. When you think about the work that needs to be done, is are you assigning it to the people who really have the passion behind it? The other is using and developing their strengths. A lot of you go to management training, and this is great, you know, figure out what's wrong with your people and then fix what's wrong with them. Unfortunately for me, I haven't had a lot of success fixing what's wrong with people. You can do some coaching and you can do some improvement. But what I have seen, and some of the other management classes teach, like Managing Personal Growth, is develop their strengths. If somebody has some strengths that are really good, if you develop those strengths, you'll get twice as much from developing their strengths than you ever will get by developing their weaknesses. You have to develop their weaknesses enough so they don't fail, but you want to develop their strengths to really get the return on the coaching investment. So think about that. The next is strategically plan for the future in your employee development. The kinds of things you need to think about in the future is your demographics. You know, what age of population do you have? What kind of skill sets do you have? Where do you live geographically? And take a look at that. One of the things that we found here was we had a large population of people that could retire. When I came to SwiftPAC 15 years ago, there was only 10 people younger than me. That kind of clued me in that employee development was going to be a real key, since all these people were going to leave and retire before I ever got to retire, and besides, there wouldn't be anybody to go to my party. So I had to work on the demographics. When you know your demographics and you know what you're up against, you know how many retirees you have, and you take a look at it by every organization that you have and say, okay, here's my organization, here's all the people I have. I've got 5 that can retire, I only have 7 people. That ought to be a clue right there that you've got a problem. And so you need to think about, what are you going to do? In most cases, as people retire and people come in, you can do cross-training, and you can handle it with cross-training. Sometimes you can't handle it with cross-training. We had a situation where all of the SACE engineers were going to retire at the same time. And so if you know that's going to happen, what we did was we went to our customer and said, all of the SACE engineers are going to retire at the same time. Does this concern you as much as it concerns me? If it does, I need you to give me 2 extra headcounts so I can go hire the SACE engineers to replace them now, because they need 2 years to get up to speed. We went and hired the 2 SACE engineers. We cross-trained them with the guys that end up leaving, and we were able to forestall a very catastrophic event of actually losing the ability to do something at this facility. So you need to look at that, understand your demographics, understand the age population, understand what the cross-section is. The other thing you got to look at is, if you're in a layoff environment, you know, who's at the bottom of the skill set. You know, if the layoffs are hourly, you're going to go by seniority. If the layoffs are salaried, you're going to go by whatever the current system is that's in place to determine who the people are that will go out the door. We had a situation in Sunnyvale where all of the Sunnyvale organizations were downsizing, other than my group. I had a group of electronics assemblers. The problem was, they were going to bump all my people. And so the problem became this huge, massive bumping. So every week there were people bumping and changing jobs, and eventually somebody would go out the door. So a labor grade 12 would bump a 12, the 12 would bump the 10 would bump the 8 would bump the 6 would bump the 4, and the 4 would go out the door. Now that we've demotivated, you know, all 6 people in one layoff, that was pretty smart, right? I said, well, that's got to stop. So you got to think about what you're doing. So what I did was I took the 12, bumped the 12, and then I laid off a 4. Okay? I thought about what was happening. I changed the dynamic. Now instead of demotivating 6 people, I only demotivated the one that lost their job. That seemed to make more sense to me. The other is we got into the situation where I could see the classified programs in the facility. You got to think about your peers. You got to think about the other people that are doing what you're doing. What I saw was happening with them is every other week, the person in the classified program was getting bumped and going out the door, and their program got shut down because they now don't have anybody. Because a lot of the classified programs only had a few people that could do that job, and they were low senior, because guess what? Their program didn't happen until just a couple of years ago, and so all their people were low senior. And I could see this phenomenon happening to them, and it was crippling the company. It was crippling the Lockheed organization in Sunnyvale. And so I formed what I called the Electronic Alliance, and I got all of the managers from all the electronics you know, all the people that had electronics people, and got them all together and talked about this phenomenon that was happening. And I said, based on what we've seen, here's the seniority list for all the electronics workers. We know that we're probably going to lose half of the people. So I drew a line on the chart on the wall. I just hung it up, tacked it up. I drew a line across it. I said, everybody below here is going to be gone. For any of you that have people below this line, I want you to come to my organization and pick anybody above the line, because I had all the people that were in the top seniority. I said, what I want you to do is I want you to pick them out. I want you to interview them. If you want them, we'll put them in for their clearance. Once they're cleared, we'll rotate them into your organization and rotate your person into my organization. Okay? We forestalled a major problem in Sunnyvale that would have happened across a lot of the classified programs by working together as a management group versus just letting things happen. So you need to understand the demographics and work on minimizing the impact based on what's going on. New skills, you always have to be thinking about the future and what new things are going to be coming down the pike. Obviously, we're going to be going to a new missile, and it'll have new technologies, it'll have new electronics, it'll have new SACE. You know, then you have to think about, well, what kind of people do I need? What kind of talent do I need? How do I get them trained? So think about the new skills, think about the retirements and what you're doing to cross-train. Take a look at each of your groups in an organization. Figure out which people are leaving. If you have to make rotations so that you've got more people in a group because you know there's more people going to be leaving in that group. You need to do some adjustments to what you're doing with your employee development and your cross-training. You need to look at turnover, especially if you're looking at major changes in a corporation. You need to really be thinking about that, but also the turnover you get because people get promoted. SwiftPAC actually has a lot of turnover because people get promoted. Why is that? We have a lot of people that come in at entry-level jobs, they go to night school, they get their degree, they apply for jobs, and they move on to other jobs. And it's good for us because, you know, they're very talented people, they're very hardworking people, but it does create turnover. So you've got to be prepared to adjust to that turnover, adjusting to layoffs. The other is looking at the depth of training that you have. You know, how many people do you need to have trained for each skill? 1? Well, I would say that that's probably a risk. 2? Well, it might depend on the skill. 3? 10? Well, it really depends on the skill. So you got to look at how many people do you have cross-trained for that job and how many should be cross-trained for that job so that you can always assure that you can support the customer with that job no matter what. The last one here for strategically planning the future is, you know, you've got some people that are going to be retiring that have a big, huge knowledge base. You need to try to capture that information. You need to be able to get with that person and have somebody shadow them and be mentored by them, and you need to be able to pass on as much of the information as possible. You need to get their files. You need to get all the paper they might have kept. You know, sort through it, scan it, get it into a database, make it searchable. Do everything you can to capture the knowledge that that person has so that it is retained in your organization. Developing pools of people. One of the biggest mistakes we make in developing people is we develop too few people. You see this a lot where there's going to be a lot of retirements and they don't really think about leadership retiring. And then what ends up happening is they're only developing a couple of people, and then 10 openings happen, and now all these people get sucked into the leadership jobs that aren't prepared. And so one of the mistakes you don't want to have is developing too few people. So what you need to do is collect a group of people, choose a diverse group, and be able to have enough there that you can develop them all, and then be able to use them as a pool of people that can compete for the opportunities that are going to happen. So then what you've got is this competitive pool to draw from, rather than, well, I've got 2 people trained, I don't know how I'm going to fill the other 5. You want to be able to stop yourself at any level doing that. Developing all levels. You need to understand when you're having retirements at the top level, that by the time it finishes, somebody that's hourly on the floor probably is going to another job. So you're into that thing. You know, when people are bumping and you go down the chain, you can stop that from happening, but when you go up the chain, you can't. So you got a manager that gets promoted, a group leader that gets promoted, you know, an hourly lead that gets promoted, an hourly gets promoted. So what you see is 6 people changing every time one manager leaves. So you also need to make sure you're developing all levels so that you've got a pool of people at each level, so that you have a group of people that can become leads, a group of people that can become group leaders, a group of people that can become manager 2s, manager 6s, whatever. So you need to develop all levels and allow competition. You know, nobody likes the favoritism that we've seen in past histories with large companies. What we want to be able to do is allow competition. Give everybody in the pool the same level of development, the same opportunities, the same ability to go to class, the same ability to sit in, and be able to use that across a group of people, so then you can really allow competition and for the cream to rise and be able to pick from the cream versus the chosen few. When you're developing your employees, you need to be able to identify what's missing in their experience and education. So you need to take a look at all of these aspects to identify the gaps and then work on a development plan that identifies ways of filling in these gaps. Education, you know, do they have their degree? What degree do they need? Do they need a technical degree? Do they need a business degree? Do they need an MBA? Do they need a master's? Take a look at their experience. If their goal is to go up a certain career path or several different career paths, take a look at what experience is required. Do they have the experience they need? Look at depth versus breadth. Especially when you're looking at leaders, you don't want to have somebody climb straight up a ladder and not have a base to rely on. I have found that people are much more successful if they try several jobs at each level, and as they go up, they're much more prepared to be able to make decisions at the next level. So take a look at both the breadth and not just the depth of understanding. Look at technical. Some of our career fields are almost purely technical. And so you have to look at, what classes do I need to send them to? Do I need to send them to the Eastern Range to get actual practical experience with some of the equipment we're going to be working with? Do they need to go to better technology courses to cover the new technologies that are coming? You see this a lot in the Cal Lab, where you send a lot of people for training in order to keep up on the state of the art with all the new equipment that's coming through. So when you're helping your person and you're identifying the gaps, pull out that old job description of what they're going to be competing for and take a look at what's on the job description. Take that job description and match it with the person's resume and their bio and make sure that they're ticking off as much of that as you can get under job requirements. The next two things here are kind of an interesting phenomenon, and that's if you're really trying to mentor somebody in order to win. You're trying to help your 5 people compete and do the best they can do. The employee needs to understand who their competition is so that they understand what these other people bring to the table. Because what happens is if you take a look at, okay, who are the 5 people that are going to compete for this next job, and do any of them have something that distinguishes them above everyone else, then you understand your competitor. So if you take a look at your peers and you say, okay, there are the people I'm going to compete with, what do they have that I don't have? And you identify something, you need to go after that experience or that training or that class or whatever it is, whether it's a green belt, whether it's a black belt, whether it's CAM training, whatever it is, you want to try to get it on your resume and tick it off so that you can be the best competitor you can be at the level that you're at. The next one is visibility with selectors. One of the biggest mistakes people make is I'm going to do a good job in my organization, they're going to recognize me and they're going to promote me. Well, when you're talking about positions at the higher levels, normally you have a panel that's going to select somebody at the next level. If only one person on the panel knows you, you'll get 1 vote. If all 3 people know you on the panel, you can get 3 votes. So here's the thing that happened to me. I was a manager too, and I wanted to be a senior manager. And I looked around and I said, who are all the voters? And I saw who were the voters. Normally it would be 1 person from engineering, 1 person from product assurance, and 1 person from manufacturing who would select the senior managers at that time in the company. And now, you got to go identify, who do you think those 3 people are going to be? You take a look at that and say, do these 3 people know me? Well, it turned out the only person that knew me was my boss. So I only had that vote. Well, what do you think my chances are if I'm competing with my peers and I'm going to get all 3 votes? Not very likely. So over the next 5 years, I took assignments and rotations so that all 3 people knew me. And they all knew I was a good performer, and I did things for them that were, really good, and they were, advocates of mine. Well, when the panel got together to do the selection, I got selected. So you got to think about how much visibility do you have with the selection panel that you think you're going to be facing. Do they know you? Do they know your name? Do they know your performance? Do you have visibility? And if you don't, you need to talk to your mentor and your manager about getting that visibility, whether it's presenting in FESPR, whether it's doing special assignments, whatever it is. It's getting that visibility. The other is identifying leadership gaps, and that's a lot of the people skill things. You need to, if you're developing somebody for leadership, take a look at, what are their interpersonal skills, what are their presentation skills, what are their coaching skills, and work on the soft skills that you see in that kind of job. The next one is called utilizing assignments, and I think this is one of the areas that you see people really miss out on the most. And it happens because a manager gets something that needs to be done, and they say, who's done that for me before? Oh, Joe. Okay, I'll give it to Joe. And all these assignments come in, and Joe gets all the assignments. Well, what does that do? It only develops Joe, and you've missed a lot of opportunity. So in these particular different arenas, you need to think about utilizing any assignments that come up in these areas in order to develop your people. And think about who you're assigning to, and are you assigning to somebody who can learn and gain from doing that. Number one, sit-in assignments. One of the things we do at this facility is that all the managers get together whenever we have a sit-in opportunity, and we talk about who would benefit from that, who would benefit from sitting in, and the person who needs the person to sit in. Like if a senior manager needs a manager two to sit in, that senior manager commits to say, okay, let's have Sam sit in there, and I'll coach that person in that job. So you need to utilize these sit-in assignments as coaching opportunities and experiential opportunities for the people that you're developing in the pool for those jobs. Becoming points of contact. When you have long-term issues that are happening across multiple sites, you'll be asked, do you have somebody as a point of contact that we could contact? You need to be thinking about that assignment as being a development assignment, and not just say, well, call the manager of that organization, call the manager of that organization, call the manager of that organization. What that does is that you lose out on the opportunity for that person to learn and to grow and to be able to benefit from that assignment. So, for example, we've got the ARA release assembly. Okay, we decided, okay, we're going to have Shane be the point of contact. Well, what's been so wonderful about that is he's gone to all the budget meetings, he's gone to all the scheduling meetings, he's gone to all the technical meetings. Because he's the point of contact, he's getting training in all three areas where he becomes the expert on that issue for our facility. But the main benefit is for him. It's because he gets to learn three facets, not just one. Versus him saying, well, contact the manager of engineering and he'll get you an answer. You know, so you really miss out on an opportunity when you identify points of contact. Use vacations. You know, a lot of things, well, we don't really have anybody retiring, so we really don't have any opportunity to have people sit in. People go on vacation. Use vacation time. Plan ahead. Plan ahead of who it is you'd like to see sit in when your people go on vacations, no matter what level. Lead people, group leaders, supervisors, technical people, people doing SAES, people doing mechanical engineering, people doing support equipment, whatever it is, be able to use that as an opportunity to develop. Identifying a team leader. If you've got a major team that you want led, those team leader assignments are really good for learning leadership skills. So if you have an IPT lead where you want to like lead people to do activation, you want to lead people to do things like that, use that as an opportunity to develop somebody's leadership skills. CI projects. Don't just do CI projects with the same two people in your organization. Use the CI projects across a multitude of people. Here we try to use all those CI projects to grow people in the area of CI and to get more belts. You know, get more green belts, get more black belts. But it also means you're developing more people. So you have more green belts, you have more black belts. My boss called me the other day, oh, we need somebody to work on this problem. Can I have this person? And I said, well, boss, we got 20 people trained for that skill. I have no problem. We got all kinds of people that can do that for you. And he was shocked. Because typically at each site there's 1 or 2 people, not 20. Okay, the nice part about having 20 is you can handle, no matter how many things happen, you can handle all of them. And so use those projects. Job assignments, that's kind of an interesting thing. One of the things I learned over the 36 years I was here is the people who succeeded and grew and got promotions were the people that got the assignments. The people doing the routine work typically were not the ones that got ahead. It was the person who, when the manager said, oh, I got to do this task, gee, I know Joe's my best guy, I'm going to have Joe do it. And Joe does all the best assignments, and then he retired. Guess what? They had nobody developed. You think about your job assignments, think about spreading those job assignments around. Don't get trapped into the 20% of the people do 80% of the work. Okay? You want to get into the trap where 80% of your people do 100% of the work. You know? So you want to really watch how you're doing job assignments. Task teams are along the same line. If you got a major issue, a major problem, you identify somebody to be the task team leader so they can learn leadership skills on identifying the issue, figuring out the problem, closing on the corrections, and closing on the problem. And that will give them good scheduling skills and negotiating skills and technical skills. So you want to think about any task teams. Strategic planning. It's good to get people in all levels of your organization to be involved in strategic planning. What that does for you is it gets people thinking more strategically rather than just being absolute crank-turner problem solvers. So one of the things we did in the strategic planning arena is we identified people in the organization that we called torchbearers, who weren't in the leadership, but were people that we thought could really benefit from understanding how to think strategically, and we had them come to our strategic planning and help us come up with our strategic plan. Well, what that did was it developed a whole bunch of people in the organization who now thought more strategically. So now, you go to a meeting, you're in your department, there's a problem. Okay, we'll solve it by doing A. Okay, that torchbearer has been given the responsibility to say, does A fit with our strategic plan? And asking that question in the meeting. So what you get as a benefit is more people thinking strategically. And your organizations have a tendency to make better decisions that are thinking more far ahead versus thinking short term. How do I just fix it today? How am I going to fix it long term? Rotational assignments. You got no vacations, you got nobody retiring, you can still rotate people. You know, take a look at people and say, well, these people need this experience, these people need this experience. Is there any way we can swap people for a period of time to allow people to gain experience, to get that breadth across the organization? Using rotational assignments is a real key. One of the keys of being able to get people to go do all these things, you got this big long list of things. The first thing that happens is the fear goes up. Okay? So what you have to work on is trust. They have to feel like they trust you and the assignment that you're giving them. They don't have to be afraid of failure. So in everything you do, you want to try to strengthen their trust and reduce their fear, because that's the environment they need to learn. If people are afraid, they have a hard time learning. So, but you also got to remember, if you don't have a little touch of fear about what you're doing, you're probably not learning. So you got to make people comfortable with having a little bit of fear if you're trying to grow them. Give away your best. This is something that I learned early on in my career, and I've been a very strong advocate for, and that is look for opportunities where your employees can really make a difference in the organization, both for their department, their division, their facility, their company, their corporation. There are things you can contribute in all of those arenas. So you want to look for opportunities. You want to be a team player. The best way to succeed is when the entire team succeeds. When LE is delivered on time, it will be because the whole team pulled together, not because one organization performed. So be a team player, take a look and see what do they need. Ask your peers. I see you're struggling, you're falling behind schedule. Is there something I can do to help you? Can I loan you somebody? Is there somebody in my organization that could help your group? And take a look for the opportunities to be a team player with your peers. Utilize the strengths in your organization. If you have somebody that's really good in your organization and has a particular skill, offer them up to help other people. We get requests now all the time. Can we borrow this person? Can we borrow that person? And we're utilizing the strengths of the people to help others. Help your peers. Don't ever think that by helping your peers it will cause them to succeed and for you not to succeed. You will only succeed if you help your peers. If they see you as a team player, you will succeed. I've seen over the years, typically what happens is there's these pool of people that are working at a certain level. And for the most part, they all move to the next level over time. Okay? It's just a matter of when, not who. You know, so don't see your peers as a threat. If you help your peers and people know that you're the team player, you will succeed. You will do better. Open doors. Have an open door policy. Make sure that your people know they can come talk to you anytime they want to. Any person in the organization, whether they're in your organization, whether they're at SwiftPack, whether they're at SwiftLant, whether they're in Sunnyvale or Santa Cruz, should be able to approach a leader in your organization and say, I'd like to talk to you as a mentor. Can you mentor me? Can you look at my resume? Can you give me some ideas on things I can do to grow? Make sure your door is open for anybody who wants to talk to you and be developed by you. Expanding your team and influence. This is one of the key things actually that helped me succeed at Lockheed Martin over the last 36 years. And I didn't realize it until about 5 or 10 years into my career. I was developing my people in my organization, and they were getting promoted and going to these other organizations. And I really didn't give it much thought because I believed in developing them, and I thought it was wonderful that they were succeeding. What I didn't realize is they went forward ahead of me. And when I'd get promoted to the next job, there were already people there that knew me who would say, I worked for Carol. You'll love working for Carol. She's great. She'll develop you. She'll help you grow. She'll help you succeed. And when I'd go into the organization, I would get acceptance. The fear factor would be significantly less. I mean, so what ended up happening, totally without me realizing it, was all of these people I developed over my career really helped me be successful, even to the point of, okay, I'm having this disaster in my current job. What do I need? Well, I need A. And I say to myself, well, who has A? And it's some person in the back corner of building 181 in California. And I say, well, I know him. And hey, Joe, I need this. Man, we're just dying. We need it really bad. Carol, you'll get it on FedEx tomorrow. You can't know how many times that's happened in my career. When I send my people to Sunnyvale to go do assignments, and they walk in to a group and nobody knows them at all, and they'll say, well, I'm here from SwiftPack. I work for Carol Evanoff. You work for Carol? I used to work for Carol. Come here, let me show you everything you need to know. So you'd really be surprised over your entire career just how much giving away your best people not only helps your best people, it helps the people you get that you develop behind them, but it will help your career as well. So give away your best people. It's a well-kept secret. So then, in summary, I think the really key to succeeding with employee development is the mentoring, growing your talent, finding their passion. And if you do those 3 things, you will get success. Any questions?
I have a couple of questions. The first one is that in Ellen, we know that like you're my mentor, but in the Ellen People bio, are we allowed to put your manager as your mentor as well?
Absolutely.
So at one point they said you shouldn't be choosing the manager as your mentor. Okay. So the second question is that we have people who come to a job because it could be partly because of promotions and or better job than they had before. But after they tried a while, it could be some kind of unfit. But doesn't mean that the person has no commitment. It's just they are ready for another one. So in that case, as managers, do we help people like that?
Oh, absolutely.
People from
one classic example is we had a scheduler who was really a bean counter, who really liked detail, but didn't really like the people interface. And then we had somebody who was supposed to be counting beans who really liked to work with people.
Okay.
And we said, wonder what would happen if we took these 2 people and just transplanted them into each other's job. Guess what? They both grew and loved it. So yes, job fit's important, and working with the management team to try to move people to where they finally get to a job that's just, their passion and their enthusiasm and their skill set can be utilized, versus having them in a job where, their skill set doesn't match. And people don't always know that their skill set doesn't match until they try it, which is one of the reasons it's really good to have rotations or sit-in assignments. Sit-in assignments are really key for people to determine what it is they really like or don't like, and they can not pursue that. You know, if they try it for a few weeks and they say, well, I don't think I'd like this job, guess what? They're not stuck there trying to figure out how to get out. So I think sit-in assignments are really, really good for people to explore what it is they would like to do in the future. So. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.